This is the Real Coaching Podcast. I'm Joe Filliol, and today I'm joined by Coach Fabio Rastelli, is an Italian who the coach of Leo Bergere, Olympic medalist from the Paris Games, Leonie Periault, and many other athletes in his squad, the Turbo Tribe, which I'll link to below so you can follow along. It was a really great conversation with Fabio. We talk about the balance of how he has developed the squad, how he manages individual and group training, how he manages balance between short distance and middle distance, how he thinks about planning, starting up with a new athlete, and how the squad has grown and how he continues to learn. I first interacted with Fabio when I was working for the Italian Federation, and I brought him on from club coaching to performance manager of the national team, and we spent 2 years working closely together. And since then, he's gone on to have such great success with this squad. And he discusses in the interview the responsibilities taking on an athlete like Leo Bergere, who won the world title the year before, expressing his doubts, his concerns, but also making that commitment to the athlete and being open and honest about the partnership that they share in the journey and the ins and outs of the Paris Games and more. So it's a really great conversation with Fabio. And I think there's something to take away from coaches and athletes alike. A reminder, you can support the podcast by subscribing to Substack, either free or a small paid membership. You can also support the podcast through coaching with myself, one-to-one individual coaching, consulting on programs, and it's also possible to join me at a training camp in the Loire Valley in Northwest France in May or June, or possibly a September date. So get in touch if that's of interest. And also coaching for coaches. A lot of the content here is based on experience with coaching that other coaches might find valuable. So get in contact to spend some time in a mentorship relationship for coaches. You can follow and watch this on YouTube, as well as audio and a bit more that will be on Substack. Now on to the interview with Fabio. Fabio, welcome to the Real Coaching Podcast. Where are you in the world and what have you been up to so far today?
Thanks, Joel. Thanks for the invitation. I'm happy to meet you. Yeah, I'm in Milan now. I from Teramo, is a small town in the middle of Italy, but I live in Milan since 15 years, more or less. So it's quite complicated to manage everything now, but yeah, I can do it.
Well,
So yeah, tell me.
we'll start with your current project, the Turbo Tribe Squad, which is super successful the last couple of years. But I thought we could just go right into what you're doing now. If you can talk about maybe the origin of the squad, who's in it, how did it start initially? What was the catalyst to get this squad going?
Yeah, it doesn't start so far from now. It started in 2023 when Leo called me and he simply says, "Hey Fabio, do you want to coach me?" Oh wow, I was surprised for this. And yeah, at the beginning I took a couple of days to reflect because yeah, I really want to help the athletes. I don't want just to coach an athlete to to like satisfy my ego, or I want to really help the athlete, and so I want to be sure. And so I called Leo back after a couple of days, and I explained to him my doubts about the possible cooperation between us. And yeah, in particular because I live in Milan, I can't move in France because my family is in Milan. And in particular, another big doubt that I had is that in 2022, Leo did a good season. He become world champion. So why he need to change coach? So, but he explained to me that he want to continue to improve. He feel like that he need to change something, and he would like to work with me because I was the coach of Angelica Olmo, his girlfriend. So he told to me, I saw how you work, your approach, and I like it. I want it. I feel that I need it to improve. So at the end, obviously, I accepted this cooperation. And after him, I received a call from Guillaume He, who is a training partner of Leo. And then after the Paris test event, Leonie Periault asked me for a coffee. And then step by step, all the other athletes asked me to coach them. And we started with this new project with the Turbo 3 Tribe. So it was
It's a
not easy at the beginning, but now I think we found a we've found a good balance. And we are working quite well.
It's interesting how you say it's a big job when somebody like Leo Bergere, who, yeah, off of a very successful year before, being that's the top, you know, you expressed your doubts. I think that's maybe one of the qualities that you have is thinking about things in this way, as you say. It's I think a lot about coaching and, there is a lot of sort of ego driven, but I've always found you not to be that way. But what were your thoughts at the beginning when you were deliberating yourself? Obviously there was a lot of pros in terms of an opportunity to work with a great athlete and see where it could go. But, you know, how were you thinking about it? Were you thinking about that commitment you said to embark on a project like this, or what were your thoughts going through your mind?
Yeah, a lot of thinkings all together and a lot of doubts, as I already told,
Mm,
because yeah, from one side there is a big opportunity, professional opportunity for me as a coach, and
mhm,
but from the other side there is my principles that I want to absolutely respect, and one of these is the respect of the athlete as a person. We need always to remember that, yeah, a coach can have in his career a lot of opportunity to win,
mm,
not really, but something like that. Uh, the athlete have just one opportunity is himself. So we need to respect the athlete. We need to respect the athlete choice. We need to accept a cooperation only if we have, if we are almost sure that we can really help the athlete. So I want to respect this principle. And in addition to this, when an athlete is a world champion and you want to be coached by you, uh, the probability um, to don't reach a success is more than to reach the success. So we need to also to reflect about this, but it's not only about this. The main point is to respect the athlete and yeah, and yeah, a guy more with more experience than me told to me that when you say okay to a people, the doubts that you have when you say okay, it will be the reason why this cooperation will be wrong in the future. So
mhm,
we need to move forward the doubts, but we need to clarify everything. And I think if the athlete is able to give you a good motivation and to explain why his motivation is stronger than your doubts, uh, I think is the strong basis to do a great job in the future. Because we always have to look at the long term effect, either for training. And that's why we need a strong basis. And in this case, Leo gives to me a really strong basis to work. And that's why I explain my doubts to every athlete asked to be coached. Because if we pass through this, we are strong enough to solve every problem that we can face in the future.
You're open and honest with what your thoughts are, and well, and indeed, I mean, Leo chose you for a reason, and he observed how you work with others and how you interact, and so this is also a vote of confidence, in this way. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, yeah. Obviously, another point it was that I'm not able to be always present in South Africa, in particular, where they are. So, but we found a good balance. So I'm for sure present 1 week per month in South Africa, and then it depends of the period of the season, of the specific needs of everyone, and maybe I can be present more than 1 week, obviously, but yeah, at least 1 week I'm physically present. And then, yeah, I think when we have some problems, some difficulties, we need to look also at the positive point. In this case, for example, uh, I look to the opportunity that we have to take something positive. In particular, we know that every athlete need to be the first actor in his own process, need to play an active role in his own process. So if we are not always physically present, the athlete is almost obligated to have a good management of the training, even if I can be yeah, I can talk with him every day. I can give feedback, receive feedback, but it's important also that the athlete will be mentally present in every moment of the preparation. So that's an opportunity. Obviously, with with the guy of the Turbo Tree Tribe squad, I not many options, but in the only option that I have, I want to look at the positive point, at the opportunity, and I want to use this opportunity to take the best of the group. So
Mm.
I think this approach can help everyone to move through the problem, to move forward, and uh, to look, yeah, uh, not only at the problem but also at the positive point.
Mm. That is very interesting because the principles you're talking about of like high self management, which is a probably an important point anyway for athletes who are going to be successful. They have to manage themselves, but in the model that you've developed, it does emphasize that, doesn't it? Because I presume, I mean, you can tell us how the squad works when you're not there. I presume they have a structure they follow. They have support ground, and the athletes have to drive that to some degree themselves, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. The role of the athletes it's a key role, but obviously they have a good support also there. They are obviously uh, um, uh, um, there is the French Federation Center in San Rafael, so they have a lot of facility, every facility they need, and they have the physiotherapist. But more important, there is also Angelica Olmo, the Leo girlfriend, who is helping me a lot, and she's always on the fight with the athletes. So I always give to her feedback and receive from her a lot of feedback. But uh, it's important that in the meantime, I maintain the communication with every athlete. So we need a double channel with the assistant coach. In this case, is Angelica, and with every one of the athletes in order to have a full view in the process and to be able to really manage the process.
So it sounds like Angie has grown into, as you say, an assistant coach. I mean, she's supporting much more than just Leo in this case, than the whole.
Yes, exactly. She started obviously supporting Leo, is obvious, but after she really realized that she liked this and that she have a lot of quality in this case because she have the ability to uh, immediately understand what is happening. I don't know how it's possible, but probably because she was a high performance athlete, so she perfectly know some dynamics. I don't know, probably because her character is, uh, yeah, is more sensitive from this, but the feedback from Angie are always punctual, always specific. So it helped me a lot.
Mm. No, that it I mean, and Angie, so you alluded to before, but you coached Angie before, so she
Yes.
has an understanding of how you would want to work, or the things, the information you might want to know that then you could adapt your coaching or your the training plan.
Yes, exactly. We always have a good relationship, so it's easy for us to talk, to discuss, and to have the same view in the process.
Mm,
So that's another important point between coach and assistant coach. We need to have to look in the same direction. We need to be like two person in one, because otherwise, if we give two athletes um, yeah, different feedbacks. We need we The risk is to make confusion, so it's not the
mm,
best.
hmm. So this is the squad, the Turbo Try squad. Before this, so talk about your background a little bit before. So um, you know, either from education or when you first got exposed to triathlon up until like
Yeah,
what was your path like into this position you're in now?
yeah. My education, I had a degree in sport science. I studied. I always was involved in sport in general, and so I decided to study sport science. I took a degree in sport science, and then I continued to study, doing a PhD in sport science and also in sports physiology area. And in the meantime, studying and doing research, in the meantime, I always do the coach job with some athletes, not really high level athletes at the beginning, but yeah, I did the job simply. And after this, I worked as a research at the National Research Council in Italy as a sports physiologist, and I start studying the maximum performance of the human body. And in the meantime, I was always coaching someone. And yeah, after I I reached the point when I had to make a choice, because if I want to keep the level of my job high, if I want to preserve the quality of my job, necessarily I have to make a choice to dedicate full time to one profession. And at the end, I followed my passion, and I decided to be a full time coach. uh, so it can it looked like I changed direction in the middle, but now looking at the past, I think that everything was clear in my mind from the beginning, or almost clear, because even when I worked as a research, I always was interested in the practical application of my research on how we can explain something to a coach who is involved in the practice and not and is not really involved in the research area. So at the end, I think that it was good for me for my growing process, because uh, I have a more clear view from theory to practice. And now I think my big challenge is to find a right balance between theory and practice, who is the main challenge of every coach, I think, because if everyone in theory starts thinking about a training plan, they want to do a lot of things, but then move to practice and you have to change something or a lot. So it's always complicated, but yeah, I think it's the key in our job. So at the end, I think my process was more linear than the apparent. So
Mm.
yeah, and then yeah, I worked with the Italian Federation when you was we worked together, and then after that, as you told, I coached Angie, and that's it. Right.
Mm. So you coached Angie at the 2020/2021 Olympic Games, yeah?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. On 2021,
Yes.
before her, I coached Anna Maria Mazzetti.
Mhm.
So I make some experience that make uh, my knowledge bigger and bigger, or more
Mm,
specific. Yeah.
mm. Well, indeed, I mean, the work that you did for the federation when I was there, I think the title was probably, performance manager or I can't
Yes.
remember exactly, performance science, but no, you were a great help to, at that time, we integrated sort of the international squad with the Italian athletes, and there was like a collaboration there. So, no, I could see then that you had some, characteristics that, well, you didn't know where it would lead at this time, but,
Yeah.
you hope that it can move on, and
Oh, yeah, for sure.
obviously, the way that I don't know if you had the opportunity to stay with the federation, but at some point there was the decision to go on your own again. So what was
Yeah.
that decision like? Did you have the chance, or you presented with
Yes.
some choices, or, yeah, how did that work?
Yeah. At the Till the end of the 2020, everything was okay. So at the end of the 2020, at the beginning of 2021, the Italian Federation had some big changes. It changed almost the entire staff. So it was not the best at the beginning of the Olympic year, but that's it. So it changed also the approach, the Italian Federation. So it was simply not in agreement with my principles, with my values. So I decided to follow my path, to follow my process, and to continue by my own. Uh, to continue, yeah, my job as I like to do it, in agreement with my values, I think.
Mm.
So it was uh, yeah, hard decision from a practical point of view, but at the end was an easy decision because I think that if you if you respect your values, every choice can be easy to understand, but yeah, not really easy to do. But you can make some easy choices simply looking at your values. So
And it's interesting because, of course, many coaches in Italy are employed by one of the sport military groups like Carabinieri, Fiamme Azzurra, Fiamme Oro. Still
yeah,
remember them, but
yes, it's
that's never been you. You didn't go on that pathway, or you didn't have the opportunity to go down that pathway. So you're really independent in that way.
yes, exactly. So to be fair, it's almost complicated to enter in a military group as a coach. I
Mm,
think it's almost impossible just to enter as a coach. I think the large part of every one of the actual coaches, they went before athlete. They were before athlete, and then when they finish the athlete career, they become a coach. I'm almost sure. So, but I, to be fair, I didn't look at if was possible to enter in a military group simply because I'm not interested. And yeah, I want to be free to act and to continue my process, looking at my opportunities and looking at my capabilities in particular. So I want to uh, really control my process, and because I think that this is the best way that allow me to give my best to the athlete, to my life in general, to be better.
mm. You talk about your principles and how you like to work. How have you developed kind of those thoughts, reflections on what are your key principles as a coach that you feel that you want to have the freedom to pursue? Like where did
Oh,
they develop, and what are those principles? Maybe you talked about some autonomy and
yes,
and athlete centered. I mean, athlete centered is something that is said a lot, but not always actioned a lot in the bigger world of high performance sport. But clearly for you, that's a core principle. But how did you develop these principles? That I presume this is how the foundation of the squad really is how is
Mhm.
how you see things and how you coach.
Yeah. For me as a coach, the first point is to put the athlete in the at the center. So we have this a lot of time, as you said. So that's why I want to explain this from a different perspective. Is not the yeah, only athlete can be at the center, but I don't want to look at this. I want to look at me as a coach, and everyone is all around the athletes. I think that everyone we work with the athlete need to be egoless. I I thought this because uh, we need to remember that at the end, in individual sport, uh, the only one who is able to win or to lose a race is the athlete. All the others able to help the athlete to give a big or small support, but the first actor is the athlete. During the race, the athlete is alone. We can see him pass for few seconds, and we can talk to him something, I don't know, go, or sometimes, or super strong, what you want, but he really don't help the athlete. The athlete is alone. So we need to remember this. And also in our job, we need to remember that the main goal of my job is not really the performance, but is to help the athlete. The performance is a consequence. If I really, if I can really help the athlete, if I can really give to the athlete my best, the athlete have more probability to take a good performance. But my first goal is not the performance, it's the athlete. I have to look at the athlete. And to understand this, I have to consider the athlete as a person. So it's really complicated. It makes my job really complicated because it's not only about numbers, about training load, or what you want, but it's only about to respect what the athlete needs as a person. If we need to spend uh, sometimes with family, with friends, we need to find a good balance because the if we talk to the athlete, no, you have to coach, you have to training, you can go to your family or something like that. The final result is that for sure the athlete will do the job, but at the end it was really stressful and he was not able to reach a good performance level. So we need to respect this simply because athletes are persons and they have specific needs as every one of us. Looking at the values of the squad, I think, yeah, some small things is big commitment to work and respect for himself and for all the other components of the squad. Respect also in this case as an athlete and as a person. So if we can respect these values, for sure we can do everything and we have no problem. And we have no problem as a group. So it will be easy to manage and it will be easy for everyone to put something in the group and to receive a lot from the group. That's the real strength of every squad. Everyone can put something, but everyone is always able to take a lot from the group. So we need to preserve this, and it's easy if we just look at the values and we respect the values.
Mm. I know I like that helping the person and being, not even just how you talk about it's not just the athlete, but the person. I think
Yeah,
is interesting. Yeah. So going on to from helping athletes, I mean, let's talk about Paris. So you had
yeah,
a key role in supporting French athletes to a home Olympics.
yeah,
Yeah, so you had obviously Leo Bergere with his medal performance, which is very important, and Leonie. when you look back at those races, what are your reflections? When you think about those performances, and yeah, go from there. I'm obviously interested in what the experience was like, a home Olympics for the athletes. But when you think about the competitions, what comes to mind of your reflections now, with some benefit of some months?
Yes, exactly. I think looking at the Olympics, we have looking at Leo Leonie, we have obviously two different scenarios. Uh, yeah, obviously because they took two very different performances, but in particular because they are really different, Leo and Leonie, and so they have really different needs. Yeah, looking at the Olympic race, Leo did a very good job. He was fantastic. He did everything I asked to him, and everyone asked to him. So he did just a little mistake on in the second lap of the swimming, but the rest of the race was simply perfect. And so, in fact, he took a good performance. Looking at Leonie, probably she was really stressful at the beginning of the race because, in particular, because the home Olympic. And looking at the months before, she looked like really relaxed. And yeah, probably I made a mistake because I didn't really fully understand what what was happening during that month. So probably um, I could have to do something different, but I didn't understand uh, everything in that moment. So uh, it was complicated because it's not simply about training. I think in this case, training was just marginal. Uh, it was more about the emotions, about self expectations, because she took a fifth place in Tokyo, so the expectation was very high. So for sure, I had to manage differently the situation, but I was not able to do it simply because I didn't fully understand it.
Hmm.
So
Well,
that's
sometimes only with the benefit of hindsight can we see, what's going on, with some distance. But I mean, Leonie, like Leo, but even more so on her day, she can do an absolutely amazing performance, and we've seen that. But yeah, so there is that reality that what could be possible. I'm sure that she lived with before, but it was. I mean, a home Olympics is a unique experience that you may never have this again kind of situation with there's only a few countries that get to experience this. But what do you think now? Like, what would you have done differently, or was it just awareness of the energy that it was taking from her? Like, was it is it less training, more emotional support? I mean, or is it difficult to put your finger on now about what could
yes,
be different? Yeah.
yeah, for sure. As I told, I I had to give to Leonie more emotional support, but it's complicated because it's uh, not really my strictly to my job and to my uh, I don't my capability, but for sure with the training I can give to her more support in order to manage also the emotion. Uh, Looking at Leo, maybe I now I can say that we can do something different during the preparation. In fact, with Leo was a bit complicated because at the beginning of the 2024, he was not sure about the selection of the Olympics. And in France, it was really complicated because the male athletes in France are so strong, every one of them. So we have no insurance about the qualification. So we need to work for the qualification. But Leo asked me to race also the 70.3 in Valencia in order to take the qualification for the World Championship, because in this case, he will have like a second option for the season in order to preserve one big goal for the season. Mentally, this can help a lot, but physically is really it's really hard, in particular because we worked a lot to yeah to reach a good performance level for the target rates for the selection, and in addition we put the 70.3. So looking at the past, probably the best choice should be the to be less aggressive with the training because we work a lot, very high training load, in particular in the period, the first part of the season before Yokohama WTS. I think it was really hard for Leo, and he spent a lot of energies for this. Probably we need a less aggressive approach.
Mm. That's a very interesting coaching challenge there. I could imagine having this, and I've experienced it a bit as well with other athletes, where logically it makes sense maybe to focus on in this case for the French selection, they basically had to go and compete in a standard distance World Series, Yokohama and or
Yes.
Cagliari at the time. But there wasn't like a defined performance that they had to do. So it was just these races were considered. Is that right? Is that what I remember
Yeah,
correctly?
I don't remember exactly, but more or less was like this.
Yeah.
So the
There
only
was not
one
an
was
automatic. It wasn't
yeah,
like if you win, it was just you have
no,
to go to these races if you're not selected and do a good performance.
yeah. I think for Pierre Lecor and Dorian Conan, they did the criterion on 2023, so they just needed a top six in Yokohama or Cagliari, and Pierre Lecor did it. What for Leo and Vince was one against the others. So it was
Well, and
really,
yeah, I mean the other
really,
factor, of course, is Dorian crashed
yeah, Dorian
in
crashed.
Yokohama, and he wasn't able to validate.
Yes,
I'm just thinking this logical decision. You could focus on those races, but you obviously had this discussion with Leo about a plan B. Uh, but of course, to qualify for the plan B part, it was Valencia 70, but it was before Yokohama. So this
before you
was,
come.
an interesting one. I mean, how did you weigh this
Yes,
up? Because on one hand, you could say best to focus specifically on
yes,
these selection events. On the other hand, I think what you're imagining is, well, it could take the pressure off the big picture to have this
yes,
other option. So
yes,
how did you think about it? Like,
yes.
it's a
To be
tricky
fair,
one.
when we decided to race in Valencia, it was at the beginning of the preparation. So we are considering also Abu Dhabi WTS, but Abu Dhabi was cancelled. Yeah, it was crazy. But we decided to stay in the plan and to race Valencia because Leo told me that it should be a big help mentally for him. So I decided, okay, we can do it. And I decided it also because I was thinking, okay, we can, yeah, we can stay with the original plan, looking at the WTS events, and then we can change something to Racing Valencia. But as I told you, at the end now I can say that he was a bit aggressive because after Valencia, Leo was really really tired. So we need to make a big change in the training plan to to arrive well in Yokohama and Cagliari. So that's
Hmm.
uh, the main problem. Yeah, looking at the past, for sure, we needed a different approach,
Hmm.
even if consider Valencia, but yeah, with a different approach overall.
No, I think that's useful because I think sometimes useful perspective because sometimes, when you're successful, in this case, Leo was successful in his qualification and at the games, as you say, like can't fault the performance. He did what he needed to do, and on the day, well, there was only two better, and yet I think sometimes with success, it's easy to overlook where you could potentially make adjustments for the future. You know, it's more common when things don't work that you look back. Okay, I should do this differently, or maybe different approach here. But you're saying even though the plan was successful, you could still sort of see some places where you would either do things differently or make some adjustments if you had to do it again, or if there was a future point. Well, and then there probably will be because, in fact, many of the athletes now are racing multiple disciplines, through the course of the year. So maybe it's a good segue talking about how you balance those things. Obviously you did balance them pretty well, but you learned something in the Valencia, Yokohama, Cagliari period. So how do you
Yes,
reflect
exactly.
on what you might do differently moving forward?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, now actually we are trying something different because this year Leo will race in WTCS events and in T100. So we'll try to put into practice what we learned from the previous experience. And in particular, I think we need to um, mm, yeah, I think we can keep the general training volume, but we need to find a right balance from the intensity side. What I learned is that the the training volume is not really stressful for this kind of athletes, but the intensity is really stressful. I mean, the volume is not stressful as the intensity. The intensity for these athletes is really stressful, probably because if we ask to them to work at high intensity, they are able to reach really high intensity. So that's why we need to be careful in the management of the intensity respect to the volume. There, the volume is not really is not so stressful, and it's relatively easy to keep the volume high, respect to keep the intensity high for a relatively long volume relative to the intensity. So now we are trying to keep the volume, but with a different management of the intensity. In particular, we can we build the volume first. Yeah, when I start with the new season mm, preparation, I I consider 3 points in the training: frequency, volume, and intensity. Frequency as the number of the session per week and per discipline. So first of all, we need to reach the target number of the frequency of the session per week, and then we work on the volume. So we build the volume. After we start working with the intensity, and in general, and now working when I start working with the intensity, I decrease the volume, and then I put the intensity step by progressively increasing, and after I re-increase the volume, not together as I did before. Probably is a better management, but after this year, maybe we can do a another podcast and I tell to you.
To evaluate, I mean, indeed, the calendar is complicated with the T100. There are many events at the end of the season, in particular, not so many
Yeah.
at the beginning, but and also the World Series. There are many at the end of
Yes.
the season. From September, October, the density is high, but how do you balance sort of, so you talked about the volume and intensity management. How do you balance the amount of what you might say specific training for World Series compared to T100? I mean, what is the approach there? Like either how you learned or how you implement that in terms of like the main sessions. Obviously there's the adaptation to the time trial position and putting the power in the time trial position versus, of course, we know World Series bikes, they can be very demanding. It depends on the course and how the dynamics are, but also more variable power, and also obviously the running pace is a higher level of speed. So how do you think about how much specificity do you need? Or I mean, in the ideal world, I suppose you would prepare for one and then change, but we don't really live in this world. We have to balance the
Yeah.
two. almost at the same time in some moments it could be. I mean, how do you think about to optimize like in this way?
Yeah, what I learned, in particular from practice, because from theory, looking at the scientific literature, we don't have so many data about this. But so what I learned from practice with high-level athletes, we can really apply the rule of the minimum effective dose for the specific training. So it's important for me to work very well on the basic training, and after we really reduce at the minimum the specific training for uh, uh, for for the target race, for the race that we are preparing. So this allows us also to prepare quite different races, and we have also to consider that in general, for this kind of athletes, there isn't a big difference respect T100 and Olympic distance triathlon. Um, on the other hand, we are almost sure that working well on the basic preparation, we are ready for both of these races. In fact, in general, the stronger athletes in the Olympic distance are strong also in the T100 and vice versa. Uh, So I think the key is in the basic preparation, and we really need to put a lot of attention and a lot of work for the basic preparation, and we can reduce at the minimum the specific one.
Mm. So if you reach that volume and frequency target, that's what you're meaning by basic,
Yes,
the fundamental aerobic volume that you're doing, and then
exactly.
you find the minimum that you can do to be prepared. I mean, how do you manage that? Is that quite individual, or are you looking at the minimum in terms of how the demands of the race, like what are you sort of thinking about when you're thinking about a minimum effective dose? How
Oh,
do you
yeah.
how do you discover this, or what's your principles that drive that decision?
Yes. So we start looking at the rate demands. So if we are lucky, it's not the first time that one of our athletes is racing this kind of race. So we have some data to be more specific from this, but we need to modulate this from the for the level of the athlete and for what the athlete did during the basic preparation. Because obviously, so as the training season, as you told, is really intense, really high density, um, we we can put an athlete in the race only if we really ready for the race. But we need also sometimes to find a solution. So if the basic preparation is not at 100%, we need to modulate what we need for the race in according with what the athlete did during the basic preparation. So the
Yes.
minimal effective dose, uh, when I talk about minimal effective dose, I mean exactly this. So I start from the race demand, but I modulate this from the athlete level at that point. So that's why simply. And yeah, this is quite easier for the T100 because it's a no drafting race. So it's really self-management of the race. Uh, on the other hand, for drafting race, it's more complicated because you you must follow the other. You can't lose time. You can't pretend to have a quick recovery to close a gap after. It's not possible. It's difficult also in T100, but on drafting race, it's more complicated.
Mm. Makes sense. So it's really dependent on where they reached in their training progression, what the appropriate level of
Yes.
intensity is going
Yeah.
to be.
I mean, during before the basic preparation, when I planned the training, I put some goal. For example, a goal for the basic preparation can be to reach a specific target volume, a specific relative intensity of the training. If we reach that level, we are able to move forward. Otherwise, the date of the race don't change, so we need always to move forward, but we need to remodulate the intensity zone of the train.
Mm. Makes sense. Yeah, I like the idea. We skipped over a little bit coming back to the Paris Games, but
Yes.
one of the interesting things that we didn't talk about yet was managing the swim, the very
Yeah.
special swim in the
Yes.
Seine. I mean, I don't think many outsiders, that are not intimately familiar would realize that the current last year was 2 times the speed of the test event. Actually, it was a 1 meter per second, so
Yeah.
it was a really challenging swim. Uh, and we couldn't swim before the competition. So I'm curious, just coming back to that. I mean, how did you deal with that? I mean, I suppose not being able to practice the swim, but also the delays. So the
Yeah.
women's race was delayed. The men's race was ultimately stacked right after the women, which interestingly wasn't one of the scenarios that was put
Yes.
before. Like there was a plan A, plan B, plan C, and then we had a new plan that was announced
Yes.
the day, I think it really did impact the men because the temperature was actually quite high for the men racing, which well, I suppose it asks kind of questions about, it's quite common now that many athletes are doing heat preparation for all races or for many high level competitions. But we put that aside for a second. But the Sen, how did you deal with the delays? I mean, we had to wake up 4 o'clock in the morning to find out if we were going to have a swim familiarization or if the race was going to happen. What was your perspective as a coach to deal with this challenge?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we can do practical advice to the athletes because it was not possible to train in this condition. And when we was in Paris, we agree with the athlete that it was better to avoid the swim familiarization because the data from the same were good, but we were not 100% sure. So uh, we uh, we prefer to avoid risk from this point. So I just talked to try to talk a lot with the athletes, and I I suggest also to them to discuss about it with the mental coach because I think the mental approach is really important in the not when we have uh, some different possible scenarios during the race. The only way is to be mentally strong and to be mentally prepared to do everything, nothing specific, but everything you need. You, you, you need to be able to do it as quick as possible. So at the end, it was really good with Leo, uh, but it was not really good with Leonie because he was a bit scared about the swim. For sure, she's not. The swimming is not the stronger leg for her, so it was really difficult for her the swimming. And in general, even if it was an home Olympics, I think the French Federation did a good job because they really protected the athletes because stay in France, they have a lot of opportunity to receive people and to have a lot of distraction, but it was not possible at the end because the French Federation really protected the athletes. And in the same way, I act for the delay of the race. From a practical point of view, I didn't change nothing. I just asked to Leo to replicate the pre-race So we did the pre-race routine 2 times. It's okay. We need to, yeah, we moved in a scenario. We was totally confused. So if I can put something like secure for the athlete, something sure for the athlete, I prefer to do it. So in this case, simple things, easy things are the best choice, and we simply did it.
So
Uh,
when the men's was meant to be first and it was delayed, so your strategy was because we didn't find out until basically the morning. The race was supposed to be at 8 o'clock. You had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and check whatever messages, emails, and find out if the race was going to happen. So then your strategy was to repeat the -1 day again. Is that right? So
yes, exactly.
whatever you did the day before, you did the same again
Yes.
for Leo in this case.
Yeah. Obviously, I was in a different hotel respect to the athlete. I was with the French delegation. So I woke up very early, and then I received a message from Stephanie from the federation. She told me the race is delayed. Okay, so I called Leo. Leo told me, "Oh, what I have to do? No worry, go to sleep." And then we replicate the yesterday days. It's okay. Okay, I go to sleep. That's it. No, but I'm lucky because Leo is really mentally strong. Mentally so strong. So eh, he's able to find always a positive point, even if in a bad situation. So it helped a lot. And also because he have a very good mental coach. So it's a key point in this case for the
Mm,
high level athletes.
mm. I mean that situation has to be one of the most challenging situations to think about. From well, even from a point of view of the athlete waking up, one of the biggest days of their career sporting wise, they anticipate this, but then they have to go back to sleep and try
Yes,
again.
exactly.
I mean, it's hard to imagine. You put all this specific preparation and energy, and then you have to adapt in the moment. But I mean, you must have had to call on your coaching skills to navigate this process with the athletes, and the athletes, as you say, being different. Leo and Leonie are different people, different characteristics. So you had to, well, in Leonie's wasn't delayed on this day, but
Yeah,
still, the uncertainty
exactly.
is super challenging. But how was your experience as a personal coach in this scenario? So when went to Tokyo. You were part of the staff with the Italian Federation, I believe.
Yeah.
But in this case, you were in Paris, but separate, kind of. Like, how did you manage this dynamic?
Yeah, at the end, I think it was easy in Paris, easier in Paris, because when you are a personal coach, you have some specific task, specific things to do, a specific job. When you are part of the delegation, you need to be prepared to everything. You need to look at many athletes, very different. Sometimes there are athletes who are not working with you during the daily training. So sometimes you really don't know very well every single athlete. So uh, in, it's a bit, it's more stressful when you are part of a delegation, respect to when you are yeah, a personal coach, because when you are a personal coach, also you are prepared for this. You worked for with the athlete to that moment, and so you are ready for your job.
Mm,
When you are part of the delegation, you really don't know what will
mm.
happen.
It's true, and I think of the even the decision making about if you're part of the national staff, you have to decide for everyone the structure. You have to get, make sure that you get to the bus, and you have to all of the logistics, which can be quite fatiguing, right? Like, because it's a
Yeah.
lot of small decisions where, as a personal coach, you can focus only on somebody else does these things, you focus on the athlete. So it's a good reflection. I mean,
Yes.
my role in Paris was a mostly personal coach, but yeah, there was still this factor of coordination that the federation could do. Um, but yeah, it's kind of a related question, but different. So at the moment, in the last years, the French athletes have been super strong, one of the strongest countries, and um, well, I was thinking two things here. One of the challenge with the relay, that being involved with a team there, so obviously there was a crash in the first leg of the relay, and which big I mean, the French team would have been one of the big favorites, for the relay, so I don't know if you reflect on this being, involved with the team. I don't know, what was the experience like, of the relay day, and yeah, I mean, you go from some highs of the individual and the team to this challenge. What was that like from your view, or how did the athletes experience that?
Yeah, it was another day because the expectation for the relay was really, really high. Were really, really high because really was they really were one of the main favorites for the gold, and they demonstrated it during the race because even if they crashed the first leg, they took the fourth place, and yeah, but everything was calculated really, really well from the French Federation. We did a lot of meetings before to discuss about the other athletes, other nations, how to act. So everything was clear, but during the race, everything can happen. And in fact, he will do. It was the case.
Mm,
It was relatively hard for Leo because Leo was lucky because he took a bronze medal in the individual. So it's okay. It's not the best, but I have a medal. It was really hard for Emma and Pierre because they took two times fourth place. It's not easy for them.
mm,
I can understand.
yeah.
It was another day for them.
Mm. It's a related question because now the relay again is changing order. So we had originally, well, finishing with women this time. The previous cycle was finishing with men. Now we're back to finishing with men. But this isn't related to what the French team did, but what is your perception of the order of the relay? How do you think about when, because certainly being involved in federation, sometimes the athletes have more voice or ability to influence the order based on their perception of the skills, but I don't know. How do you think about the order of the relay? What do you think is
Yeah,
the order meaning, I guess, for people that are not intimately familiar with mixed relay is, the strengths and of each individual. You could
mhm,
consider what position should be the best. Like
yeah,
the big debate is always the first leg, because the first leg has a different dynamic because it's a mass start, where the others are more staggered. Do you put the most reliable, stable performer in the first leg, or maybe because the chance in the first leg is the group is going to come together, maybe you can put somebody that has a different characteristic. I don't know. How do you think about it from your
yeah.
experience?
Yeah, I like that they changed the order from one Olympic cycle to the other because I think it makes more challenging everything. And but considering the characteristic of each leg, I think don't change too much if there is male or women. So I think in the first leg, it's really important to be a strong runner because there is a massive start the swimming is short, so it's easy to stay in the group during the bike, and you can make a big difference with the run. In the second leg, I think it's really important to be a strong swimmer in order to uh, close a gap if you are back, or maintain or increase the gap if you are in front, in order to maintain the race dynamics, I think. And then in, in the third leg, it's really important to be a strong a strong biker, because it's the probability to be alone is really, really high, and so it's important to be able to make the difference alone on the bike. In the last leg, I think uh, good, good swimmer and good runner. It's There are two key points, because you for sure, not for sure, but because the probability to be alone or in a small group in swimming is very high, and you can lose time during the swimming. And after the final leg is running, so you need to fight till the last meter. So it's, in general, my opinion. Then it depends of which kind of athlete you have to make the team, and you you can change something to take the
Yes,
best.
not every country has the depth to be able to have the profiles like you say, but then
Yes,
you have to think, and then well, then you maybe have somebody, well, like you say in the relay, that can make a difference. Like is able to make a change. Like I suppose we could say Taylor Noob's bike in the relay was amazing. Amazing performance on the bike, and well, not everyone can make a big difference like that, but it makes me think. I mean, I don't know if you have an answer for this working with many French athletes, because we've talked mainly about Leo and Leonie, but you also work with many other. It's not
yeah.
a French group, but you have a lot of. Uh, I suppose it's the way the groups evolve, isn't it? Because athletes speak about your work and more want to join, but what is your perception on why France is one of the strongest countries? Do you have a sense of this? Is there some reasons that maybe the athletes think about or you think about? What's your view?
But to be fair, I don't have a specific answer, but I have an hypothesis, and in my opinion, is because of the stability of the system, of the France system. Uh, what I mean is that in France, yeah, from a long time, the staff of the high level group is almost the same. He didn't change it so much from one Olympic cycle to the other, and maybe change some rules, but at the end, the people are more or less the same. It means also, and more important, that the goal that the high level put for the athletes, goal and criteria to make the selection and something like that, eh, they are almost the same, and more important, they are clear from the beginning of the Olympics. So it allows athletes and coaches to work always in the same direction for a lot of years. They don't have a lot of changing from one year to the next one. So athletes and coaches are able to work from long time in the same direction. That's one key point for the success, because uh, we know that if we want to reach high level performance, we need to work a lot of years. We can't pretend to reach high level performance in 1 year. We need a lot of years to work. And so we need to work always in the same direction, because if we always change direction, we do a lot of work without reaching the goal. So I think the stability is one key point why we have so many strong French athletes. And yeah, maybe there are also other points, because they have a big French P circuit, and so it's a good opportunity for a lot of young athletes uh, to improve and to make some strong races. Yeah, but I think the main point is the stability
Mm.
of the system.
That's an interesting insight. I hadn't reflected on that before, but I think you're right that in fact the French Federation has very high standards for participation, don't they? Like to participate in a World Series, you must be a very high level. You don't see too many development athletes competing in competitions that are above their level, you could say, which actually happens in a lot of countries. And I suppose there are pros and cons, but you're right, the stability of that vision. In order to reach the next step, you have to achieve this performance, and they keep this standard high, or they have for the last many years. I agree. Where in some places you see the philosophy like this changing a lot. Like now, before last cycle, you have to be, I don't know, you have to be capable of a top 10 in a World Series to start a World Series. Now, top 30, or like really big changes that maybe changed. Is that what you mean? Like the policies, the criteria, the support behind the athletes can change a lot, and this changes the direction. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. And yeah, in this case, I can reintroduce my concept of the egoless, not only for coaches, but for everyone who is around the athletes, because in some countries, the rule and the criteria are changing a lot year by year, because when you change the staff, the new staff members can want satisfy their ego, and they want to say, hey, it's because of me that now we reach good results. So because my project, so I put this project with new rules. So everyone is working that direction. And then other change, oh no, new project, new rules, and they change a lot. So if we work for the athlete and we respect athletes and coaches and we respect their choice, it's easy to understand why we need to create a stable environment to allow the athletes to work for a long time in the same direction with the same goal. So that's
Hmm.
I think a simply way to understand this.
Yeah, institutional stability. I think that's kind
Yes.
of what you're saying because, yeah, I mean, I've experienced this in a number of environments, and equally working with individual athletes from different countries where there's a lot of turnover. It's not only due to elections, or there's often a lot of staff turnover, and then you get the same ideas come around in a circular fashion that maybe have been done before, maybe they didn't work so well before, but now there's a new person with the same idea, and
Yes.
they're gonna try. It's very interesting. I mean, I think probably the other part of the French system is the club support, and it's most exposed in the Grand Prix series, but the domestic racing is very good. The club support is very good also. But
Yes.
yeah, I think it's certainly interesting to think about. And, I mean, some of this is beyond the scope of what we as coaches can control, but it's still interesting to think about where the athletes' environments are. Um, but just the last things as I'm reflecting on the Paris experience. How was the post Paris period for you? Because often in Olympic sport, we talk about sometimes there's a hangover, like a period, you build up to this big goal, and then it's finished. How was this both for the athletes, but also you as a coach? How did everyone experience this?
Yeah, for the athletes, as we had told, was really different from Leonie. From Leo, for Leo was obviously good. He took a short break and then back on training and full focus on the next goal of the season. For Leonie was obviously hard. And she took a lot of time to be back on 100% on training, and she she took some good results at the end of the season. And after the European Championship, when she took the second place, she started to be a bit more confident in herself, but she really did a great job, a big job to be back on training. It was not easy, but yeah, I'm happy and I'm proud of her because she did it, and now she is looking with more confidence for the new season. And yeah, this new season after the Olympics will be like a transition season because it's the only season in triathlon when we have no qualification pressure for the Olympics. So we will use this to try something different, not only different races, but in particular something different in training in order to be ready for the next Olympic qualification to try to, im- to continue to improve. On the other hand, for the other athletes, it, this season it's an opportunity uh, to race in the next step for them. So someone is moving from European Cups to World Cups. Yanis Segan is moving for the to the WTCS events. So there are different challenges, but everyone has a big challenge to do.
We certainly see at the moment there are many athletes doing what you say, trying different things. This year, doing a lot of running races. We have
Yes,
Alex Yee doing the London Marathon, T100, 70.3. It's going to be interesting to follow this Olympic cycle through to LA because some of the athletes will have different opportunities, as a result, like maybe they're going to find a lot of success in middle distance racing, or, there's also opportunities for those who are stepping up in level, like you say, that, some of the top athletes may be trying different things. That presents an opportunity for young athletes to come through and, maybe have the kind of performances that allow them to take their confidence to the next level because, well,
yeah,
maybe Alex or Hayden aren't racing, maybe Leo's not racing. So, maybe that there's an opportunity for some others as well. It's
exactly.
going to be interesting. I mean, how do you navigate inside your group the different goals like this? Because you have some competing at the top, you have some taking the steps up. How do you balance this, like the individual approach within the group to the whole group approach, if there's such a thing?
Yeah. So I think it's not so difficult to individualize the training because you need just to be focused on one athlete per time, and so to make a plan, individualized plan. But it's hard to make everyone able to do the job maybe different from the group because he have this different needs. So in this case, you need to talk a lot with the athlete in order to explain to the athlete why it is important to do a specific job, a specific training in order to keep the motivation high. Because every athlete is continuing asking me uh, to do as much training as possible with the group. Obviously, I understand because with the training with the group, it's easier and you can train more. So you have a double positive effect. But sometimes you need to do something really specific for yourself. And I think one of the coach skills is to to be able to better understand to the athlete why it's important to individualize the training. And this is important to keep the motivation high for the athlete. If we keep the motivation high, the athlete can do everything is possible. But the key is the motivation. So one of the coach skill I think is the ability to keep the motivation high to the athlete, even when they have to do a not really funny job.
I mean, there's a lot of repetition in our sport, of course.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
inevitable, but yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, that the dynamics of group activities, I mean, obviously swimming, we're almost always together, even if you can have different sessions. Where on the bike, you want to do things together for fun
Yeah,
and motivation, but also individually if you're doing well, depending on your approach. So yeah,
yeah,
you're
for sure.
balancing those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the week template is always the same.
Mm.
Not always, but yeah, more or less is the same for everyone. And these have a double positive effect. The first one is that if the weekly routine is clear for everyone, they can easily manage uh, everything in addition to training, appointment, or something like that. And yeah, the general life in general. And this is the second positive effect is that it's easy to put they all together for some training session. So even if the core of the session sometimes is different, we can do the session together. And maybe I try to create some small group according to the level, to the goals, in order to avoid that someone is completely alone during the training.
Mm.
Obviously, this is often possible, not always, but I try to avoid that someone is completely alone.
Mm. How do you balance the different levels? For example, in running, it's the most challenging at times, but you have somebody at Leo's level of running performance, but then you have somebody that's maybe not quite at his level. How do you balance like doing things together versus doing the right intensity? Like, what's your approach there to make sure that the younger athletes don't smash
Yes,
themselves or become
yes, exactly.
injured? Or what do you think? What is your approach?
Yes, it depends of the athlete. Obviously, you put an example of the young athletes. In general, young athletes have not so many difficulty with the high intensity, so they are able to reach quite easy the very high intensity, but they miss a lot of consistency. So probably they need a longer recovery times, or they need to understand how to manage the intermediate intensities. And while the other athletes, I try to for the other athletes, I try to manage making some difference in the intensity first and then in the recovery time. So when I build the small groups of working, I look more at the intensity to make the group with the same intensity. And if it's not possible, I work on the recovery time. So,
Mm,
but the priority is on the intensity. So,
mm.
group with the same groups with the same intensity.
Same intensity, yeah, yeah. And when you were describing how you might take some different approaches this year with some different athletes, what is your inspiration or your ideas of what different things you can do? Because on one hand, you have a methodology and a process that is demonstrated very successful. On the other hand, as you say, either for motivation or to take the different opportunities, you can also try some different things because I think a lot of coaches, I have the same idea of like, well, I should evolve my process, do some things differently, but also don't want to deviate too much from the what can be successful. So, how do you think about this evolution in either your methodology or the opportunity where you have a bit more space now to try some different things, whether that's Leonie or Leo or other athletes? How are you thinking about this?
Yeah, the principle at the basis is as you told, the evolution. We need to be as we ask the athlete to evolve. Me too, as a coach, I need to be ready to evolve. Never stop learning, studying, and try something different to evolve. As I told at the beginning, the main challenge is to move from theory to practice because when you do it, we need that sometimes we lose something. It's like when I don't know when it's like as there isn't a perfect overlap between theory and practice. That's why it's a big challenge because we move from theory to practice or vice versa, and we lose something. We are not able to respect the same principle that we have at the starting point. So that's the main challenge, and I always try So that's why my background in research and then in practice on the field helped me a lot. And this is what I try always to discuss with the coaches in order to understand and to share new uh, new methods to do it. The problem, but also the challenge point is that doesn't exist a specific rule to do it. So that's why, back on what we already said, the key is the evolution. We need to be prepared to evolve and to change always something different because the scenario is changing every time, and we need to find a new approach to solve the problems, to take the best. Uh, so this can make a bit of confusion between the athletes because sometimes some athletes are asking, "Oh, why we are doing something different in respect to last year?" Oh, because now the request is different. But yeah, I think that's the key. From one side, we need to evolve. From the other side, we need to respect the basic, the principle that we use as a guide. And yeah, mm, so I don't have a specific philosophy, but I think one point to respect is to put the same attention as for the volume as for the intensity. Because sometimes in endurance sport, we are a lot focused on volume, but we put less attention to the intensity. It doesn't mean that we need to do a lot of intensity, but we need to manage very well the intensity as for the volume. There is not one key point, but the key is to put everything together. As for the training, doesn't exist one key session, but the key is on the process. The same is for the parameters of the training. There is no one more important than the other. We need always to consider everything together.
That's a super good summary of how you
Well,
connect, well, your background to the practice, and it's a big theme, theory and practice. I think in endurance sport and for athletes and coaches is synthesizing research and new information, but also, well, how might you apply this? I think the art of coaching is the implementation of ideas, and you come to reality of well, many things could work, but you have to be able to implement them in the context you're in, with the environment you're in, the athletes you have, and well, you described very well how you put attention on different spaces, and well, it's a good summarization of our discussion, but maybe the last point is just, what are the resources for you to keep learning? What when you think, when you're trying to learn and take the next step in your coaching process, how do you learn? How do you keep either current, or what is your process? Do you read a lot of books? What is PubMed? Studies. Tell me about your learning process. What is that like?
yeah, I think, yeah, obviously, to study it's a key. So we need to have some standard reference to study. For example, like the book from Mujica, Endurance Training, I
Mm.
think is the title. And also we need to check on PubMed if there is something new. But after, I think what is giving to me a lot is to share knowledge and to discuss with other coaches because sometimes even if we are working in completely different area, at the end I realize that always we have the same problems, and working in different area we have often we have different solution for the same problem. So this is a real positive point for me because uh, yeah, sometimes what we need is just to look at the same problem, but from a different perspective. For example, just yesterday I had a call and a discussion with my friend who is a strength and conditioning coach in high level rugby for high level rugby player. So totally different, but we have a lot of connection point, and as we work in different area, we have a different solution for the same problem. And it helped me a lot. I the only advice that I can give to every coach is to share knowledge, to discuss with other coaches, because if we are always looking to our area, we miss a lot of information that help to us to grow a lot.
Mm. No, that's perfect. I think you're right. We can end up so narrow focused on our own job that's in front of us that we need to create space to hear the solutions that others could come up with. And as you say, the same problems across sports in different countries, but maybe different solutions. So
Yeah.
it's a great summary. And well, I think it's the total summary of our conversation. It's been a great conversation. I appreciate you sharing. Well, just like you said, giving back also, but sharing your process. And certainly from my view, it's been really cool to see, well, your progression and the success that you've had with the squad and well, over all of these years, seeing, the culmination, not just with Leonie, but the whole project. You can feel the environment, the positivity, the support that your athletes have for each other, and for you. So that's really cool to see, and an example for others, like finding their own way. And I think because that's what you've done, and well, I reflect on the days that we spent in Fuerteventura and others, and then seeing now, all the success you've had. So I look forward to seeing where it goes next. But I know that being somebody that's driven by the values that you've shared today, that you will continue to be successful, and the athletes will be happy to have your support and the next steps of their careers in this cycle. So thanks so much for sharing today, Fabio.
No, thanks to you for the invitation, and thanks to giving to me the opportunity to share and discuss with you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
So that was a great discussion with Fabio. Really enjoyed connecting with him again and following the journey into the Turbo Tribe squad and his success with Leonie, and others. You can find the links to follow Turbo Tribe and his own Instagram below, and his personal website if you want to get in contact. A reminder, you can support the podcast, subscribe on Substack. Make sure you're up to date on subscription via RSS or whatever platform you use for the audio podcast. And you can support the podcast also if you're interested in coaching, coach mentorship, if you're a coach, or if you want to spend time together at a training camp this year in the Loire Valley in France, get in contact.